Hello, shalom, and cheerio. Hi, this is Philip Fan, still with the philipfiles. And one day, when I'm older and wiser and have reason to do so, I'm going to write an autobiography. And the name of my autobiography, the title, will be "I Know I'm Wrong." Yeah, yeah, a lot of confidence right there. Just take it. No, I do. I know I'm wrong, and I think that's actually kind of how I approach life. Not that I think I'm wrong about it. Actually, I think I'm right about things, but I'm willing to admit and to be wrong. Being wrong doesn't scare me. Um, Part of that goes back to this nasty habit we had in my family growing up of talking to each other and listening. If only I could just talk and not listen, then I would never have to be wrong. I could be right all the time, even when I'm wrong, but I would be right. And it's about winning. And in my family, it was we'd listen to each other and we'd have debates and argue, and we try to be right. I mean, yeah, everyone wants to be right, and but we'd listen to each other and we'd learn and things. And anyway, just nasty stuff. But I think actually this is a very biblical thing, um, of this idea of being willing to be wrong. The word in Greek, I don't know. In Hebrew, I don't know. But in English, I think it's humble. Humility. Humility is knowing that you're wrong or can be wrong, and being willing to admit it. Being humble. I've met some very humble people lately. Went to Israel with a very humble man, and it makes me like really respect him. It's a very attractive thing to find people that are humble, uh, and uh, and it makes me want to learn more from them. It's kind of weird, but anyways, so I was thinking about knowledge. As a science teacher, knowledge actually science is the Latin word for or scientia, which is where we get the word science. It means knowledge in Latin, and of course, knowing the Bible and stories of Adam and Eve, it kind of I think back about okay, what was going on in the Garden of Eden? And there were two trees in the Garden of Eden: tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And God says, "Don't eat from this tree." Didn't really say anything about this tree initially. And Adam and Eve don't know how long they're there, but eventually the devil. First thing the devil does, the first lie in the Bible, is the devil comes up, the serpent comes up to Eve and says, "Has God said?" So he questions what God has said. Questions revelation, questions the communication from God. And anyway, so Eve eventually eats of the tree of knowledge, and of course Adam does as well, and the rest, as they say, is history. But okay, so why did God put the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the garden? That's a big discussion. That's a whole other blog that I'd actually have to do some research on. But uh, I think the tree was there for a reason. I think God was going to have them eventually when they were mature enough. He was going to maybe share that fruit with them, or I don't know, kind of reveal things to them in a slow and a progressive way, and just as they were matured, as they're ready. But instead, they usurped and rebelled and took a hold of it. And but knowledge is very powerful, and knowledge can also be very inflating, and can make one proud. Um, and I've seen that a lot as I've grappled with science, and I've grappled with different questions. Kind of a novice politician, if not a politician, but I studied social studies and politics and stuff, and people that are very proud. I don't care if they're Republican, Democrat, whatever. People that know they know everything and they let you know that they know everything. These people annoy me. I just don't have time for them. I don't like that. I like the people that are humble enough to be like, I know I'm not right about everything. I think I am. I'm going to get people around me that can help me, can kind of keep me, going the right direction. And then that can correct me. The Bible says, "Faithful are the wounds of a friend." If you don't have somebody that can call you on your crap, you don't have anybody. I mean, you need people that can sharpen you and can keep you in line, and take that as a friend. But I just thought I'd share that with you. You do need that. Oh, and I need it too. That was coming. And so humility. I think the Bible actually says God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. And knowledge has this inflating thing to it. It's fun to know things. And what we can do is we can get to a point where we think we know it all, and then we're resistant to other people, but we're resistant to any theories or any ideas or anything that goes against what we know, and so we become closed-minded. My principal was telling me about a book he's reading about mindset. I haven't read it, but he was kind of describing it to me, and I was thinking about that, how you have open-minded people and closed-minded people, or and maybe there are different words he used, but people that are always open to learning, and I would say that's humility. And then people that know it all and they're closed-minded, and I need to read the book. But anyway, it was interesting. I was thinking about this humility and pride. And that leads me to this thing I share with my kids a lot, this knowledge paradox. If you've not heard the knowledge paradox, it's the more you know you don't know. And I say, what if knowledge, if every bit of practical knowledge was written down from the earliest humans, Adam and Eve or Uga and Buga, whoever it was, they sit down, they start writing the book of knowledge. First entry, fire hot, woolly mammoth heavy, saber-tooth tiger no pet, and they write down every single thing. Stone no roll, rock roll, whatever. And they write it all down. They start writing, and from that point on, every single piece of practical knowledge of discovery was written down in a book. So with my students, I'd say, okay, well, let's say from then to the Romans, them to the Greeks, and the Greeks added a lot, and then the Romans, and here we are now, 2015, and the book is 3 feet high off the desk, single spaced, big thick book. So the question is, where does the book end? Where does it end? Does it go to the ceiling? Does it go past the ceiling? And how do we know where the book ends? Where does that book end? Not trivia knowledge, not like everybody's name, or name all the shrimp in the ocean. Not practical knowledge. Where does that book end? I don't know. But does anybody know? And yet what happens with knowledge is some people, they think they have answered enough questions, and they are closed-minded. They really, with that knowledge paradox, the more you know you don't know. The way I describe that with my kids is, my students, you answer one question, but that leads to 2 other questions. So then you tackle the second question, that leads to 2 more, and then those lead to 2 more, and then and before you have this big tree. It's kind of like the other illustration I use is like teenagers. A lot of teenagers are like, they're walking into the shallow end of a pool, and they're up to here, and they're all, oh, I know everything. And then, when they're 16, they know everything. And then when they're 18, they step off into the deep end of the pool, and all of a sudden in college they're swimming. They're over their heads, and that's a humbling experience. We've all gone through that, hopefully, where you're just like, oh my Lord, I don't know anything. And so this the book of knowledge. How high is it? And I think having an open mind, realizing we don't know it all yet, is a very good thing. There is the anecdote, which unfortunately I researched on Wikipedia and found out it wasn't true, but there's a really cool anecdote about a guy who wanted to shut down the U.S. Patent Office. He said everything that could be invented has been invented. And of course, he moved to do this in like the late 1800s. Now, there's more to the story. Wikipedia ruins every good little quip, but I'm just going to leave it there. But there's more to that story, of course. But I remember thinking this in the 1980s. I was listening to a Petra song. I think it was "This Means War," and I was like, "Wow, this is really good music." And I was like, "How can they make any better songs? I mean, this is, who can think of any better songs? And who can think of any other songs? This is in the '80s, and this is before Ice Ice Baby and Can't Touch This and the '90s and Weird Al's recent album. I mean, how, because I couldn't imagine it, and because I'm not a songwriter, or not a good one, I didn't know how anybody else could, and so I was limited by my own um, thing. Of course, that's to say now, what other technologies, what other inventions? These are again some of the other things I do with my students. Is what are some other things out there where, you know, we got to think outside the box, and and dimensions, think outside the cube. Um, so anyway, and this is why, I mean, in science, I'm frustrated with a lot of the science now, because we think we know everything, whether it's the Big Bang, evolution, medicine. Um, there's because I'm frustrated with the current like Gestapo of ideas, or what a term I used in one of my videos called a monopoly of thought. I'm frustrated with that, and so to break free of that, sometimes I'll check out these conspiracy theories on the internet, and it goes to go back to another thing with science and with testing is truth can be tested. If you're showing me the truth, if you're presenting the truth, then you're not going to mind if I test it. If you have a miracle drug that's going to cure all diseases, okay, then let's test it, and you're not going to mind that. You're going to be like, yeah, go test away. Now, if you're trying to hoodwink me, if you're lying to me, you're not going to want me to test it. Which kind of leads me to one of my other conspiracy things I'm still researching, is this whole vaccine thing. Of course, as soon as I say that, people are, you kook, wacko, idiot, yeah, bamboozle, whatever. And of course, that's the ad hominem attack, and again this kind of the squelching of independent thought, of countercurrent. And I don't even know what I think about that, but I like to investigate it, and I do have some questions there. I have a lot of questions about that, and this has led to some interesting discussions on Facebook with friends that are no longer my friends. They defriended. Now, I don't know if they have or not. I don't look at the numbers because I don't want to get depressed. But I think in our world, the concerning trend for me is, one, we think we've reached the top of that book of knowledge. And how do we know that? Okay, number one, I don't think we have. I think that book of knowledge goes through the roof, if not higher. There's a lot we don't know. There's more we don't know than what we do know. That's my opinion. I don't know that for sure. I could be wrong. But that's what I think. Okay. Now, and if that's true, then there's so much to learn. There's so much we need to learn. There's so much more to learn. And truth can be tested. So these ideas that are put forward, let's test them. And if they're not willing to be tested, then they're no good. There's something wrong, something rotten in Denmark. And this gets back to the last thing I want to mention. Ben Carson, Dr. Ben Carson. He's maybe running for president. I don't know. But I bought his books recently. I was reading one of his books and listening to some YouTube videos, and he made a point in one of his, I think, videos, is that one of the problems in politics in Washington, D.C. is they're all lawyers, most of them. And lawyers are taught in law school how to win. And doctors, on the other hand, it's not about winning, it's about doing what's best for the patient. Because that's the agenda, because that's the goal. Nurses, techs, other doctors can correct a surgeon. And say, and now there's a certain protocol, I'm sure, but they can correct and say, wait a second, because the goal is what's best for the patient. Right? And so doctors make mistakes, so they have to have people that can correct them, and they have to have that openness in a surgery room, where Dr. Carson was a world-famous neurosurgeon. And he likens that to politics. Well, as a teacher, I kind of have a similar approach in that it's not about getting you to agree with me. I hope you don't, because if you agree with everything I say, you're not really thinking. That's what I tell my students. I want you to disagree with me, because I don't even agree with me all the time. So disagree with me, fine, but as a teacher, I want the discussion, the thinking through it. And sometimes I've been accused of being like the devil's advocate, and that's probably true. Uh, uh, and but there's something about that. That's something we always kind of do. My family, and I had a friend who was a mentor to me in high school and college, who would play the devil's advocate, frustrate the tar out of me, but it got me thinking. And I remember just kind of off the note, in sixth grade, my social studies teacher in sixth grade, I thought she was like evil, the devil. I thought she was evil because, come to find out, I thought she was a liberal, evil liberal. Well, she taught in South Tulsa in the suburban school district, social studies. And looking back, I wonder if she was probably concerned. I don't even know what she was, but she got us to discuss things in class, got us to argue things in class. And I remember my friends and I, we'd argue, we'd try to get our things right to prove her wrong because she was so wrong, we had to prove it. And I don't even know what but that engagement, that thing, it's a very good class. Now I realize what a great teacher Miss Simmons was. But at the time, it's like, oh, and now I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I do as a teacher. Um, so anyway, there's more I could say, but that's why I think about the knowledge paradox and the power in being wrong. There is power in being wrong and being willing to be wrong and being willing to learn. Um, Now about those conspiracy theories, well, I have a theory about them too.